They will virtue signal and pretend they have forgiven you. They will tell the world how wonderful they are and they forgave you, and wasn't that nice of them. But of course, like all things that happen in narcissistic relationships, behind closed doors, it will be clear that they have not forgiven you. So, why is gratitude so difficult for narcissists? Thank you. For most of us, that's all we need to hear. Thank you. Those two little words pack so much power. A recognition that we did something. A little bit of gratitude. And it's often enough to support us and encourage us to keep doing nice things. Many of us say thank you without even thinking about it. But many times we really do think about our thank yous. Gratitude can be expressed in a wide range of ways. The simple expression, thank you, gracias, merci, dankeschön, arigato. You know what? Do me a favor, send me you thank you in your language in the comments, because I want to see how many parts of the world have been impacted by narcissists. I would actually love that. Just write it down in those comments. Thank you in your language. It can also, the other ways we can show gratitude, it can also be a thank you card. A thank you call, a thank you email, a thank you text. It can also be more elaborate, like a gift. But real gratitude, it goes deeper. We feel it. We see it in a person's eyes. And most importantly, gratitude comes through in a person's actions. The grateful person may have our backs as much as we have theirs. The truly grateful person doesn't feel as though you owe them something. They are genuinely joyful at receiving what you have to give them, and without asking, will likely do right by you or have done right by you. When there's true gratitude present, the dance between two people is really quite easy. The research on gratitude is very clear. It's good for us. It's good for us to express it. It's good for us to experience it. So, why is gratitude so difficult for narcissists? I'm sure you have a few guesses, but let's break it down. It's quite possible a narcissist has uttered the words thank you to you, but their actions before and after their thank yous really don't speak to gratitude. So let's break it down. The entitlement means that they really aren't thanking you. They almost felt owed or entitled the thing that you did for them. They really do believe they are all that at times, and that things should be coming to them. It helps protect them against that fragile, no, they actually don't deserve it. The grandiosity doesn't help. Once again, at times they really do think that they are all that. And in the more extreme cases, they may think that you're the lucky one who's getting to do something for them because they're all that. Gratitude doesn't come naturally for a narcissist because of their lack of self-reflective capacity. They lack empathy, so they really do not account for or consider the feelings of another person. They also don't stop to consider their impact on other people. Because of that, they simply do not take notice of the kind things that people do. They just take them. I remember traveling once in a part of the world where narcissism seems to be quite endemic. And I was actually in a place at the time that was very fancy relative to everything around it. And I was struck by not only the arrogance and entitlement of the patrons in this particular restaurant, but the fact that they didn't even make eye contact with the people who were serving them. And not once did they say thank you to them. Not once. They just took what was being given to them as though it was owed to them. Yeah, I understand they were a restaurant, they were paying for it, but a human being was bringing it to them. And they simply didn't make a single grateful gesture. Of course, when this much narcissistic behavior is on display, you know me, I could not pull my eyes away, and I just sat there. So I watched how the people in this large group all interacted with each other. It appeared to be a large group of friends and family. The men in the group spoke very disrespectfully and abruptly to the women. The women spoke somewhat nastily and abruptly to their own children. Nobody was really that nice to each other. The children, frankly, were by and large pretty poorly behaved, and the few that weren't looked pretty darn depressed and detached. The whole scene was absolutely awful. The setting, interestingly, was spectacular. It was this beautiful place. The service was impeccable and kind, and these unempathic, cold, entitled people could not find it in themselves to say thank you. Not once. Now, to a healthy person, gratitude is not work. It just flows. We feel blessed to be in the presence of someone who is doing something kind, whether that's a server in a restaurant, a stranger on the street, or a close friend. It builds the connective tissue of healthy societies. But the narcissists, forget about it. Now, if expressing gratitude may get them something, for example, they'll express gratitude, they'll put on a show of gratitude to get narcissistic supply or to win over a powerful person they need. At those times, they can look like the most grateful people in the world, which is why it is so horrifying when you have a narcissistic person in your life and you can see that they have the capacity to even fake gratitude, but they do not bring it into their lives with you. In the same way, a narcissist cannot take responsibility or accountability or awareness. They also don't show gratitude. At its core, gratitude is about some level of self-awareness and being able to value other people. Those of you in intimate relationships with narcissists know exactly what I mean. Nothing you do gains you gratitude. They take from you without noticing. In fact, they likely stopped noticing you a long time ago unless they need something or are angry at you or need a target. Many people in narcissistic relationships will exhaust themselves trying to pull some gratitude out of a narcissist, but it gets them nowhere. And sadly, they will often blame themselves. Once again, you're back to the whole I'm not good enough, that's why I'm not getting gratitude. In family systems, you'll notice this as well. The narcissist often sits there as though they are holding court and receiving what they believe is there. They often rule with an iron fist and believe that family members should simply show up to events, dinners, parties, whatever gatherings they have, to pay homage to the wonderful narcissist, and rarely will they thank anyone else for their efforts. And in the workplace, yikes. If anything, they may steal credit and gratitude for the work you did. It's an awful feeling. So if you are standing around and waiting for a thank you from a narcissistic colleague or boss, you're going to be waiting a long time. And again, many people can feel frustrated working like this because other than your paycheck, little you do in these workplaces is ever going to get noticed. But you may be thinking, I've seen them put on a big show of saying thank you, because that's just what it is. It's a show. Narcissists do really poorly at day-to-day gratitude with people whom they may devalue or take for granted, or whom they do not feel can do anything for them or open doors for them. But when the gratitude involves putting on a show, then you better believe they're good at it. The communal narcissists in particular are very good at putting on a big show of saying thank you and giving a big donation or picking up the check, and may even say they want to thank everyone for being there, because there it is. Ultimately, when narcissists do say thank you, in a strange way, without at all being in touch with it themselves, they are thanking you. They're thanking you for bringing them narcissistic supply. Their thank yous may actually be most prolific when their grandiosity is on point, or when it's a particularly Instagrammable day, or when lots of people gather into a place for them, a birthday party, a wedding. On those days when narcissists are flying high because all of their ego needs are being met, those are the days that they are full of big and cheerful thank yous. And you may see them giving effusive thank yous across the board to the valet who parks their car, to the restaurant server, to any random person who does something for them. If you catch the narcissist on one of those good, grandiose days, they may seem like one of the most generous and grateful people in the world. So if you are waiting for a thank you on a day just because you did something for them, or showed a courtesy, or did the right thing by them, or made a sacrifice in their name, expect nothing. Catching thank yous from narcissists is a matter of luck and good timing. They come when the narcissist feels good about themselves, and they come when they are receiving narcissistic supply. Is that gratitude? I don't think so. I think what it may be is an expression of relief that the narcissist is getting what they need and what they believe they deserve. They're thanking you for feeding their need for supply. If you want gratitude, go to the people in your world who are healthy and grateful. Otherwise, if you do something for a narcissist, it better be because it feels like the right thing to you. And to get by with it, get by without it on most days from them. That's how narcissists work. I was recently at a meeting of therapists where someone was talking about a video that was put out by the Cleveland Clinic on how healthcare providers can give better and more empathic healthcare. This video has had over 7 million views. I suggest you watch it. You can watch it now. The link is in the video description and come back here. Or you can watch my video and then listen and go watch their video. I was dubious about this video at first, but I wanted to watch it. And then I watched it. I cried my eyes out. I'm a bit of a crier. But then I realized, though, the video hit me really hard for another reason other than it being a somewhat moving video. I'm going to talk about that Cleveland Clinic video here. It's not like it's a spoiler. It's not like a spoiler. It's not a movie. But basically that video is a video of people going through a day in the hospital, right? Patients, people in the hallways, people who work there. And next to each person is like a little word bubble about what they're going through that day. So for example, one person's word bubble was a girl, and underneath her it said, visiting her father for the last time. Another said, they found something odd on her mammogram. Another said, having first vacation in years tomorrow. And armed with that, we understood their expressions, their countenance, perhaps their irritability, and maybe even their strength, as they were still showing up and smiling and full of kindness, despite what was happening that day. I found it again to be very, very powerful. Now, obviously a good rule for any of us to follow is that when we go into a place, any place that and we're going to interact with people, we do ourselves and them a favor, and we remind ourselves that this may not have been an easy day for that person, or maybe that they're missing something that mattered to them to be there at work. And so we try to be cheerful as an opener with them. At a minimum, we do that so we may not personalize their irritability entirely, or just perhaps to make another person's day easier who may not want to be there. We also may have had our own difficult day, so sometimes that is more difficult for us to do all the time. But I mean, obviously one of the messages of this video is offer more grace all around. But this video really made me think about narcissistic people. The veritable psychological bulls in the china shop, right? And the video led me to realize that many, not all, but many people who have gone through narcissistic relationships and narcissistic abuse You're always seeing those little word bubbles next to people, especially the ones next to the narcissistic person. Maybe they had a hard day. Maybe they're scared about their meeting today. They did get bad news last week. And so you not only justify their behavior, you keep adjusting your behavior to them. Maybe you, like I said, you make excuses for all of their behavior. Maybe you excessively apologize or wonder if maybe you're the one who's not kind enough. And then take that a step further, that many people in narcissistic relationships are deeply, sometimes almost too deeply empathic and do all this word bubbling about people all the time. It sort of generalizes out to the world around a person who's been in a narcissistic relationship, and that empathy gets multiplied. It becomes a way to make safe attachments outside the narcissistic relationship. But the problem is that this empathy is often one-sided. And especially if you grew up with narcissistic parents, that idea of reciprocal empathy sort of goes out the window. Your empathy is a good thing until it encounters a narcissistic person, and then it becomes risky. Because what happens is that while you have those word bubbles, the narcissistic people don't see those word bubbles. They don't care about whether you lost your job or got a questionable medical test result or have a sick friend. Even if you were to make your little experience word bubble known to them, tell them what's happening in your day, in your life, it's often received by them as an inconvenience. You might get some performative or hollow empathy, but then sort of hanging there is the sense from them of, how long do I need to be nice to you now? They may feel put out by your word bubble. And so even if you make your so-called experiential word bubble explicit, that still may not be enough to get their empathy. I thought the Cleveland Clinic video was beautiful. I'm sure by now some of you have watched it and you would agree. It was a wake-up call and a reminder. It's very important for any of us who work in any form of healthcare setting. But that video to me was also a painful recognition of the impossible situation that people in narcissistic relationship find themselves in. That you're always seeing these experiential word bubbles and accounting for the experiences and fears and feelings, not just of the narcissistic people all the time, but of everyone else too. And in these narcissistic relationships, it's definitely not being reciprocated. And ultimately, that's not sustainable. I mean, the best most of us can do is find those places where those experience word bubbles are being seen on both sides. And even if you can't leave or step away from all of your narcissistic relationships, having some places in your life where this happens can help you manage the workarounds and the necessary disengagement of the narcissistic relationship. And to recognize that even if you can see their word bubble and you can make sense of their behavior, making sense doesn't mean excusing it. And it's a wake-up call that this relationship is not good for you. So please take care of you. I was recently at an event. It was populated by survivors of narcissistic relationships. That's who was the audience. I've never seen so many well-mannered, no, you go ahead. No, it's okay. I'll step. Everyone was so aware of everyone else. It was really, I was making note of it. At first I thought, like, this line isn't moving smoothly. And I thought, oh, it's because everyone is being so kind and warm and aware of everyone else. It was really beautiful to see, because usually it's not like that. It's like, how come you cut in front of me in line? You expect that, but that wasn't happening at all. But definitely check out this video. I will watch it again. I really found it to be very, very, very compelling, but also very saddening, because I realized how much it reflects how important this kind of awareness of what other people are going through is, and how often people who are in these relationships and narcissistic relationships don't get it. Let's think about it. Let's break it down. When you get an apology from a narcissistic person, is it an apology or is it actually a defense? So you can drop this in the comments, your feelings about the narcissistic apologies you've received, or even what they look like. There are few things more painful and invalidating to experience than an apology from a narcissistic person, right? Narcissistic people don't really apologize. They deflect, they rationalize, they blame shift, I am sorry you feel that way. An apology, true apology, contains contrition, accountability, and awareness of the harm to another person. I'm sorry for what I did, it hurt you, and I take responsibility for my action. Apologies are really about making amends in an honest way. It all seems so simple, right? That true apology is all but impossible for a narcissistic person. The thing that they often do, though, is they turn the apology into a bit of a defense. So let's take a look at some examples. It might be things like, okay, I'm sorry I yelled at you. Are you happy now? Because I yell because I'm never heard or appreciated. If you could just show me that you care, then I wouldn't be so on edge. So weigh in. Is that an apology? Or is that merely them defending themselves? Personally, I think it's a defense wrapped up in a gaslighted bow. 'Cause that's the struggle, right? More often than not, narcissistic apologies basically feel like they're defending themselves. It's like they're providing an evidence base for the thing that they're actually supposed to apologize for. Their mouths form the words, I'm sorry, but it ends up being an entry into a big defensive mess. This comes up a lot in situations involving narcissistic infidelity. They'll say something like, okay, I get it. You're mad at me. I'm sorry. Ugh, I've been feeling ignored for a while since the kids were born, or since you got your new job, or since your parents moved into town. Fill in the blank on whatever the reason they gave you for cheating on you. And we weren't spending that much time together anymore. And then you decided to take that vacation with your sister, and all that time I had to spend alone. What did you expect? Does that feel like an apology to you? I didn't think so. Now, for a narcissistic person to genuinely apologize can feel almost impossible. To do so, to apologize, is a sort of psychological recognition that they are human and flawed and not perfect. And that cracks through their grandiosity and evokes all kinds of shame. So they may do the sort of pseudo-apology to get out of trouble, or to look good, or just to be able to say that they apologized. But in fact, the I am sorry is a setup for the defense that's about to come. You can call it a defense or a rationalization, whatever, but ultimately it is meant to say, okay, I did a thing that you didn't like, but you got to see it was understandable. For a narcissistic person, they invoke that self-defense argument all the time. The word sorry tricks us into thinking we just heard an apology, but you didn't really. Dig deeper, write out what they said if you need, and if you will see that nearly every narcissistic apology you have ever received was really them defending themselves and never an accountability. Now this doesn't feel good. Listen, people, we are human beings. We make mistakes in relationships all the time. That's normal. And relationships can and often do absolutely move forward from these mistakes. That happens, though, when the other person, or whoever the person is, even you, when you did something wrong, you take genuine accountability, you acknowledge the other person's pain, you make amends, and you don't keep doing the thing that required the apology. Relationships not only move forward from that, they can actually grow. The entire enterprise of narcissistic apologies is really all about gaslighting, deflection, and their maintenance of their grandiose and perfect vision of themselves, while continuing to paint you out as the problem who's too sensitive, and then their behavior as being understandable. So when you do finally get that apology, that so-called apology, you often don't feel whole, because ultimately it wasn't an apology. And you'd be surprised, even therapists can get tricked by that. Couples therapists will say, well, look, he just said sorry. But if it had all that gaslighty schmutz underneath it, not so sure it was an apology. Don't let the word trick you. Pay attention to all the other festoonery around that I'm sorry, and make sure it's not just them defending their bad behavior. We've used these words before on this channel, but let's talk about can't and won't again. Okay? So, for the sake of example, a friend calls you and says, can you run to my house and run across the street to my house and check on my dog, and you say, oh no, I can't, because you're in another country. And so you say, I can't, I'm in wherever you are. Or your partner asks if you are willing to go to an early dinner. And you say, I'm sorry, I can't, because you have to work a shift that night that you can't get out of. Or a family member asks you to help them move. And you say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I can't. I actually have a surgery scheduled that day, right? You understand can't. We all understand can't, right? You simply, there's no capacity to do it. And this is a two-way street. You may have made similar asks or requests of someone, like I just said, and they say they can't because they're having surgery or working a late shift or out of the country. And odds are you get it. You wouldn't feel invalidated. You might be like, ooh, okay, I got to figure this out. It is what it is. Now, there's also context. And if it's someone close to you and it's always about can't, they can't always be having surgery, out of the country, working a late shift, repeated can'ts may wear on you, but all of that feels different than won't. If you think about the examples I just gave, and people said to you instead, nope, I won't do that. I will not have an early dinner with you. No way, I will not help you move. I won't run next door and let your dog out. That feels different, right? That feels like an F you. And think about how you would feel about doing that. Someone asks you to maybe do something simple or something that you feel is appropriate to ask, and you say, no, I won't do that. Most of you very empathic souls who watch this channel would say, oh no, I could not say that. That would be really hard for me. Some folks make it sound like setting boundaries is as simple as won't. Like, no, I won't do that. Well, good luck with that. All right? And this distinction between can't and won't relates to how we communicate needs in the narcissistic relationship and why these relationships feel so messed up. Because over the years, it's not about how the narcissistic person can't meet your needs. It's often that they won't. A person who won't meet a very basic need, but is fully capable of doing so, that can reflect sort of a lack of empathy, a lack of interest, a lack of attunement, an entitlement, I can't be bothered, a lack of caring. The argument that is often made is that narcissistic people can't meet your needs. You might even be told that the narcissistic people do not have sort of an internal apparatus that would allow them to meet your needs, that they don't have the empathy, the sweetness, the warmth, the kindness. Maybe they don't have those things. But it's interesting because they are often able to meet requested needs from other people where the stakes matter to them. I don't know, a boss or something like that. So it's not a can't, it's a won't. For a long time, the trauma bond is about you believing the can't, that they can't do this, they can't do that. We make excuses on the basis of the can't. They can't, they're too busy, they don't know how, they were never shown. But in most cases, the narcissistic person will meet this need for other people if it benefits them, or do the thing that matters for others because they're going to get grandiose compliments about it. So it's not about can't, they just won't. To really think about this, it is important to go beyond things people can do, right? Because the things we're talking about, come to dinner, let the dog out. That might even be too simple a way to think about this, and evolving the thinking about this into emotional presence. That they not invalidate you, they not gaslight you, right? They can do that. But not only will they not acknowledge that they're doing those things like gaslighting you, they will then go further and say that you're too sensitive, etc., etc. You know the drill. They won't be present. They won't see your reality. They won't hold space for your emotions without viewing you as crazy. They can do these things. Trust me, they can. Heck, they probably did it in the beginning of the relationship with you. The CEO they're trying to win over, they aren't gaslighting them. They didn't gaslight you in the beginning of the relationship. But the power play and the dismissive contempt that overtakes all narcissistic relationships means that they won't do those things for you. Relationship consultants and relationship coaches and therapists all come to the same kind of advice. Communicate your needs more clearly. That's why they aren't able to do those basic relationship 101 things like acknowledge you when you talk. Okay, maybe once or twice. But in most narcissistic relationships, communication will get you nowhere. And sadly, we have always been more likely to shame and blame the person who is in the relationship being narcissistically abused. Maybe they aren't doing that. You do things like, maybe they aren't doing the thing that I need because I didn't make it clear. Kiss my ass. That's not what this is. There's no way to make it clear. And many survivors of these relationships spend years in shame, thinking that they were not capable of communicating clearly. I don't care if you speak, text, send Morse code, telegram, email, snail mail, an ad in the paper, skywrite it. None of that's going to work. And that combined with the narcissistic sense of that maybe they can't, it's not true. It can mess with your head and keep leaving you with the sense of what am I doing wrong? It's not you. Focusing on the won't, can or will also help you cut through the trauma bonding, because if you can hold on to that idea that they do have the capacity, they've even shown you the capacity in your relationship or with others, and then they don't do it, in most relationships then it's not a can't, it's a won't. And those won'ts do not feel good. Talk about forgiveness. We're going to talk about this different. I'm asked about forgiveness every single time I'm in a group. It comes up over and over again, even when I'm doing therapy sessions. These are the kinds of things I hear. Dr. RAMANI, can I heal if I don't forgive? Will forgiveness finally set me free? If I forgive, will then I automatically heal? How can I move on if I don't forgive them? People will tell me I'm being told I'm a bad person for not forgiving. Or will say, I don't really forgive them, but I feel pressured to forgive them. On and on and on I hear these things. And the answer from me to these folks tends to be the same. You absolutely can heal if you don't forgive. And then I ask them, you want to forgive? Do you really forgive them? And then tell me how will you feel when the narcissistic person turns around and does the same thing to you again? Because they most likely will. So it makes forgiveness a very fraught topic. But let's turn this question around. I think this is an important one for us to visit and revisit, which is, does the narcissistic person ever forgive? Right? They're asking for it. Do they offer it? The answer to that is probably not. So while you're sitting there anguishing about whether or not you should forgive the narcissistic person, I can tell you this right now, they are not doing the same for you. Because, yes, let's be honest and be open. Sometimes we do wrong by the narcissistic person. We may say something, we may do something, we may violate their trust. Obviously, none of us are perfect, and when we're in relationships with narcissistic people, we're not perfect. We make mistakes. It's the nature of being human. However, when a person is not narcissistic or not antagonistic, there's a big difference. Healthier people are capable of doing things like making genuine amends, taking responsibility and apologizing, being accountable, and even changing behavior, which is the crucial piece, especially when there's two healthy people in a relationship. So you may do something that's not okay in a relationship. You own it. You apologize. You take responsibility. You try to make it right. You change your behavior. And keep in mind that in most cases, a narcissistic person is not going to do any of these things. And folks, depends on the person, but not everything feels forgivable. So in life, we may sometimes do things that someone can't forgive, and it hurts us, but hopefully we learn from it and don't do it with someone else and grieve the relationship we lost. Now, we are humans, and to pretend otherwise, that we could ever be perfect, that's the ultimate arrogance. Forgiveness is a complex human conversation that we try to simplify by treating it as a one-size-fits-all. But what if we actually do wrong by the narcissistic person? Does the narcissistic person forgive us? Right? And they don't. So you may wonder, well, if they don't forgive us, what do they do? And some of you watching this will say, well, the narcissistic person said that they forgave me. So let's break that down. Number one, in many cases, the narcissistic person will not forgive you for whatever the thing it was you did. It could be days, weeks, years, decades, and even lifetimes of them repeatedly saying to you, how could you? How could you do this to me? And it will seem as though they believe that they were the only person ever wronged in the history of people. It wasn't just that something bad was done. It was that you, little old you, did something to the great and wonderful them. And then you may also hear lots of victimized superiority stuff. After all I did for you, or everyone takes advantage of me. You get the drill, I'm sure you've been there. And they won't forgive you. And they will likely hold whatever the mistake, transgression, whatever you did, they'll hold it against you maybe for an entire lifetime. And number two, and even if they pretend to forgive you and say they forgive you, the narcissistic person will actually hold a grudge forever. You might think they forgive you, but then they'll keep bringing the thing up. 5 years later, 20 years later, hell, 50 years later. You can really see this stuff go down in families. There's intergenerational grudges, right? You see it, again, across generations. Narcissistic parents and grandparents and aunties and uncles, all holding grudges for lifetimes, holding grudges for people that are long since dead, and people not speaking to each other and just being cut out of the family photographs. Just word to the wise, okay? Grudges do imply non-forgiveness. So even if a person says they've forgiven you and they're holding a grudge, they haven't forgiven you. I say this, I'm a bit of a grudge holder, so I'm owning that. Number three, but narcissistic people do care how they look to others. So they will virtue signal and pretend they have forgiven you. They will tell the world how wonderful they are and they forgave you and wasn't that nice of them. But of course, like all things that happen in narcissistic relationships, behind closed doors, it will be clear that they have not forgiven you. So despite their opaque and vague social media posts about forgiving people who have wronged them and proclaiming how forgiving that they are and taking the self-righteous stance of how much goodness they're filled with, they will prance around the world as though they're some sort of holier than thou forgiver, but they actually didn't forgive you. And they do keep holding a grudge. And as a result, you kind of get dinged twice. And you not only have to acknowledge the hypocrisy of the world, viewing the narcissistic person as being so gracious as to forgive you, but the narcissistic person still takes it out on you behind closed doors because number four, they're going to bring it up again and again. You are not the only one who ruminates in this relationship. Narcissistic people pointedly will ruminate if they perceive that someone has done them wrong. It strangely confirms what narcissistic people believe about the world, that everyone is out to get them, that sort of eternal victim stance. But they can't believe that someone would do this to them because after all, they are so special. And then again, that's that grandiosity and entitlement. Like, how could anyone do this to me? So they just can't get their head around someone breaking their trust, even though they are suspicious and even though they claim to believe they are the target of whatever random witch hunt they're the target of. What this means for you is that whether they claim to forgive you or not, again, they're going to keep bringing it up for a long time. Like I said, maybe even forever. They're going to bring the thing up in eternity. And again, when you keep bringing it up, it's not really forgiveness. And on top of that, they won't let it go. No matter how many times you apologize, no matter how many times you should take responsibility, how many times you give context, and years go by and you never ever make the mistake again, it doesn't matter. They won't let it go. And hell, 25 years down the track, they may ask you, how could you have done that to me? Why did you do that? Help me understand why you did that. And will keep asking you, even when you answer their question fully and honestly and vulnerably. It's as though no answer can really get to what they want to hear. And then number five, then there's the problem of vindictiveness. Listen, all of us have a little streak of vindictiveness in us. I have talked to many folks who hope someday that they will be able to get revenge on the narcissistic person, or that life will hand the narcissistic person a sort of karmic revenge bomb. Over time, that sense of vindictiveness can fade, but vindictiveness actually tends to be very stuck and fresh for narcissistic people. And that can mean that if you did, or they perceive you did, something bad to them, seeking revenge is often a part of the narcissistic relationship dynamic. Now, getting revenge is not forgiving, and neither is vindictiveness. But whether or not they say they forgive you, it is not beyond the pale for most narcissistic people to believe in quid pro quo, tit for tat, evening the score. So they may lie in wait and get their revenge or do something hurtful and never apologize, but position it as, well, we're even now. You were owed this after what you did to them. And again, they'll say, now we're even, though oftentimes the thing they do is far worse. But the vindictiveness can mean that even again, they virtue signal and claim to forgive, that they don't. And then if you have done this bad thing to them, you do end up living in this incredible tension of like, oh my gosh, how are they going to pay me back? The narcissistic person's lack of forgiveness can also muddy the waters of your own forgiveness. You may try to take some high road stance. I'm going to tell you, I hate all this high road positioning. It just serves to shame survivors and leave them wondering if they are bad people, because I can promise you that the narcissistic people like to pretend that they are taking the high road, but I don't think they could even find the high road if they tried. Narcissistic people have a complicated relationship with forgiveness. They believe they deserve it. They like to put it out there to pretend to be morally superior, but they don't really know how to do it, because to truly forgive means that you no longer resent the offender. You no longer really punish the offender. You don't keep bringing the event up repeatedly. You don't weaponize the bad thing that was done, and you move forward in good faith. Well, a narcissistic person can't do that on a good day. And when you couple the narcissistic rage, the passive aggression, the victimhood, the hypocrisy and double standards, the entitlement, and the sense of superiority, including moral superiority, and the pathological selfishness, the short answer is no. I actually haven't witnessed much genuine forgiveness from a narcissistic person, or had clients share with me any genuine experiences of forgiveness. I actually just read a bit in the news about one of the many narcissistic people gobbling up the oxygen in the news cycle these days, who had the audacity to say, "To err is human, to forgive divine." And yet this person's life is just a big revenge fantasy playing out in real life. Please. The narcissistic folks are great at throwing these aphorisms out, but they rarely can live them. So before you keep self-flagellating and wondering if you are a bad person for not feeling that you're able to quickly forgive a narcissistic person who has harmed you repeatedly, often doing the same bad thing, or you thinking that you can't heal because you don't forgive, remember, narcissistic relationships are all about a lack of reciprocity, and forgiveness is one more place that lack of reciprocity plays out. Ultimately, your forgiveness is a personal decision. Whether you do or you don't, please remember, if it doesn't feel right, you can heal just fine without it. Thanks again.